This is Dan Franklin, and I'd like to welcome you to this edition of the SIS Customer Education Series. We're going to be talking about Microsoft Power Apps and Flow for Dynamics SL. Welcome, everybody. Just to give you a quick introduction on SIS, we were founded in 1996. Our headquarters are in Duluth, Georgia. And we deliver business solutions that help project and service-driven companies unify their business processes, applications across the enterprise, thus delivering better visibility and efficiency. And just to drill into some of our services, we do current state assessments based on taking a look at currently how you use your system. Business process analysis to take a look and see how your entire business process functions inside or outside the system. We're full service with software design, development, and deployment. We can do both ERP and CRM implementations. And as part of that implementations, we'll handle your requirements, fit gap analysis, do custom application development. We can also do rapid deployments for hub and spoke rollouts for enterprise companies. We also support both on-premise and cloud deployments for all of our Microsoft Dynamics products that we carry. Just a little bit more about SIS. We are a Microsoft Gold certified partner. We have over 20 years of experience in serving Dynamics SL customers. We have a dedicated support and customer care team. There's our 888 number right there. We also have a very experienced partner team, consulting and development team. We have many people who have been here a long time and understand Microsoft Dynamics SL inside and out. We understand your industry best practices and the software in order to bridge the gap between business and technology. And we have broad industry-focused solution offering for SL, CRM, Dynamics 365, AX, and Microsoft SharePoint. Our focus is your industry, not just technology. Okay, so we're going to shift over to Jeff Suin from Microsoft. He is going to present the Power Apps and Flow portion of the main event here on our presentation. And at the end, we will have time for questions and answers. So I'm going to toss it over to you, Jeff. Good morning.
Good morning, Dan. Thanks so much. And Dan, I know we have one person who's joined here on the panel. If you are joined here, if you make sure that you mute your line. That sounds like they did. Perfect. Perfect. So thank you guys so much for taking time. What are we going to talk about today? So if you're coming to this session, hopefully you've heard something, whether you've seen one of my presentations on Power Apps and Flow. So the idea of today's session is the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about what are these things? You know, these things you've talked about, Jeff, what's the benefit? Why would I be interested in learning about Power Apps and Flow? So we're going to talk high level about what they are and what they can do. Then I'm going to show you, for those on moving up to SL 2018, what you can expect when you move up to SL 2018. So we'll go through a demonstration, which you might have seen before on Power Apps and Flow. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the new Flow items and Power App items that will be coming here in the near future, either here in the next release or the one right after it. And then the thing that I'm really excited about is that you hear me talk about them, but hey, Jeff, what if I wanted to start playing around with them and learn how to do them? We're going to devote a whole section as how do you get started with Power Apps and Flow, from what are the things that you need to talk to your IT people about to get connected. And then once you get connected, show me just how to do a real simple one, Jeff, and I can go from there. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And the benefit of this is that you're going to get a copy of these slides that you can take and then open up at your own leisure and start working in and saying, okay, I remember Jeff talking about that one day. And so you can actually pull it up and start working along with it. So that's our goal for the day. A lot to fit in here, but also we're going to try to get this so we can get some time at the end in case you happen to have any questions as well. All right, with that, let's get started. So the drivers for Power Apps and Flow are basically that we want to be able to provide a way for people to act on their data, or to measure their data, or to automate a process. So many times that we talk about this idea of being able to act or automate, or in measure as well. We're talking about tools that a lot of times people look at and go, okay, that's a really great tool. I'm going to have to spend lots of money on it, and it's really not going to do what I want it to do. Or it's going to invest a lot of time into it, and I'm not really interested in doing that. So what we're trying to show here is that, again, one of the things that Microsoft has been working on are these 3 tools, and we're just going to talk about Power Apps and Flow, but we've heard me call it the Power Evolution or whatever I've called it in the past. But there's these 3 tools that Microsoft is developing to really help you connect to the things that you need. Whether you need to be able to see a visual and look at your measurements through Power BI, or you want to be able to act on the items, view things, take actions on them, or you want to be able to get Flow where you're automating, you're getting notifications about things. And that's what the things that we're going to focus on today. Now, the way that we connect is that Power Apps and Flow really can connect to anything, and that's kind of one of the benefits. It could connect to something as simple as you have an Excel document sitting out there that you want to be able to connect to as something as detailed as a Dynamics or as big as a Dynamics SL database, and even bigger items as well. So what we're going to talk about today, obviously, is our connection through something which they have called a gateway. And a gateway basically is a way to say, Power Apps and Flow, you live in the cloud. I want to be able to connect to my data that's sitting here on my server. So it is a secure, what we call gateway, which basically says it lets Power Apps and Flow know how to connect to your Dynamics SL data or your Excel data or whatever. So there's a thing called a gateway, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, that allows you to do that. But the benefit of this is that Power Apps and Flow, they live in the cloud. So that means that I can access them wherever I'm at. It's not something that I'm loading locally on my machine and no one else can get to it and I can't share it with people. It's something that's being put up on the cloud, which means I can access it whether I'm in the office or I'm on my phone or tablet, wherever I happen to be. So that's another big reason why we really like the idea of these Power Apps and Flow. So going back to Power Apps and the idea of building an application. How many times as whether you're payables, receivables, project, whatever area you work on, do you come up with the idea of, I'd really love to be able to do X, Y, Z. And then you go ahead and you talk about what you'd like to do. And then, the IT says, well, there's a lot of restrictions and stuff, and it's going to cost us a lot of money to build those things. So, there's the one side of the site that says, it's got to be secure. Well, of course, we all understand that. It needs to be scalable, meaning that more than one person can use it. It needs to be able to be integrated and compliant with the standard technologies and security that we need to have out there. And then on the other side, there's me and payables or receivables or projects saying, hey, I just want it now. Get it to me. I want to be able to get to it. I need to be able to access the data. I don't want to have to be logged into Dynamics SL, sitting in my office to connect to it. Maybe you've done Azure and you're having out there, that's great, but I want something that's quick that I can get to, easy to work with, easy to provide to the people that need it. So usually when you have those 2 items, a lot of times these things that we want to do kind of get left by the wayside because, well, it's going to cost us a lot of money, it's going to cost a lot of time to get that. The old way that we think about it is if I needed something to run in SL, we would say, okay, we need to get, talk to somebody about creating a solution that runs in SL, and there's time that goes behind developing it, designing it, and then finally, once we get it done and tested, then it's months later, and we finally, or more longer, till we actually get the solution out there. So the idea behind being able to do a Power App, it's something that can be quickly created. I can instantly get connected to my data. I can edit it on the fly, make changes to it. And then when I'm happy with it, then I kind of give it out to everyone else. So it's taking a lot of those items that may never happen at your company and giving you an opportunity to kind of revisit it and saying, what, let's look at that solution. Let's kind of change the way that we think about building an app as not being a process where I'm going to wait, 3 to 6 months before we actually get it out the door. We're going to do a lot of, time-consuming things just to get it built. And let's kind of make this so it's something that we can do at a much quicker pace. And that's where Power Apps comes into this. So basically, what the idea behind Power Apps is that you probably know where the data is in Dynamics SL that you need to get to. And so they've created a tool that will allow you to access whether it's your Dynamics SL data or data in Excel or any other solution out there. So I'm obviously going to talk to you from the focus of SL, but this really think about what I'm talking about is that you can probably do this across your company in areas outside of Dynamics SL as well. And that's the power of Power Apps, is that it really can be connected to anything. So again, the first part that says connect is that obviously we want to be able to connect to the data that you already have. Again, we'll talk about here in a second about gateways, but it's a way for it to understand where the data is that it needs to get. The next is we'll see in our demonstration that creating an app or a form or whatever we want to build is really simple. It's a simple tool that allows me to basically drag and drop the fields that I want onto the screen in the way, in the format, and the look that I want. And then I can create an application that connects to my SL data and allows me to rearrange it the way I want. And then when I'm done with it, I can go ahead and publish it, and then I can get access to it, whether it's in the web, whether it's on my phone, my tablet, my desktop, wherever it is. So that's a completely different idea. And then again, this is not built that you have to be 100% technical. If you know how to do Excel formulas, ideas, that kind of idea, then you've got some of the basic skills that you're going to need to connect to and use Power Apps. So here's just an example, and we'll see this live, or we'll click through it, so to speak, live. But basically, here's an example. Someone wanted to create a simple form that allows them to look at some information. And you see it's basically a form where they've gone ahead and dragged and dropped certain fields onto the screen and allowed them to start creating this application that they're creating. Again, we'll walk through one that's related to SL here in just about 5 or 10 minutes. So again, the nice thing about Power Apps as well is that there are built-in connections to the things that you use. So again, I'm coming from an SL side, but there's a lot of other things that you probably have out there already that Power Apps already connects to. We'll talk to you today about how you can connect Power Apps to Dynamics SL 2018 today and how that's going to work. So again, start thinking about solutions that might make sense. I'm going to walk you through an example or 2 examples today about what we've used Power Apps for. But again, it can be something as simple as I just want a list, inventory, a list of projects with key fields that are important to me, vendors, customers. It can be something as simple as that, or it can get even more detailed where we're showing graphics and so forth around. In this case, they're looking at budgetary information is there. So it can be from the real simple to the more complex and anywhere in between. So hopefully this kind of gives you a thought, okay, this is something that I can do. And as you see, it's something can be accessed on a Windows, Apple, Android type of interface. You can get to all that. Don't need to have an app store, nothing to get access there. You're basically going to access a site where you can view this information. So very, very powerful bit of information out there. Now on the other side, there's Flow. And Flow is really, I see it as a way to really be monitored and notify and take action on items that are sitting out there in your database. So again, just like I showed, there's a whole bunch of preset templates that are out there that connect to different solutions. Same thing happens here with Flow. Again, the idea of Flow is that you could get some type of automated email notification when things are happening. So you are not waiting, and it's basically helping you be proactive on things that are happening in your database. This is the examples that they give that I took off their site. You could get it so it automatically texted you the weather forecast at a certain time of the day, or every hour it could tell you that, whatever you need. Or when someone's interacting with some of your systems, whether it's SharePoint or OneDrive or whatever you happen to use, let me know when things are happening. So there's different things that are already built into it as well. And the example that we give for this, again, there are a lot of presets out there, but the one we have as an example that you've probably heard me talk about before is it interacts with things like Flow. So let's say, for example, I've got it set up to monitor when people are saying things about Dynamics SL. So let's say Dan says something really nice about Dynamics SL. So I could have it set that whenever someone says something about SL, that I send them an automatic email that says, thank you for your tweet. And did you happen to know XYZ? Here's more. If you need more information, please go here. So you have that capability to automate the process that it's monitoring what's going on in Flow and then taking action based on that. Now, on the other side, it might be important for me to know that Dan is the one who did that, so I could actually have it set up that when Dan or other people are doing that, that it takes their Twitter information and it goes ahead and puts it into, in this case, an Excel document, and it automatically will email me, and then I can actually have it attached that document to the email. So I can review it and go, oh, yeah, that's some pretty, I like what he said. That's really information. You know what I'd like to do? I'd like to take that data and I'd like to store it somewhere. Now you could store it in an Excel, on a SharePoint site, or you could say, you know, I like this information. I want to store it in Dynamics. And that could be in Dynamics SL, that could be a Dynamics CRM, wherever you decide to take that process. So you can see there's a little bit of an automation process here. It's monitoring things, but it's also allowing me to take action on them and move forward with the process. And we'll walk through again an example here, but the idea here, it's kind of you're building the steps. You know, here's what I want you to first do. Look for this. When this is met, then I want you to grab this information. I want you to, you know, take it, put it into a CSV file. Then I want you, if this is true, then I want you to email it to me. If it's this, then I want to send it here and so forth. So again, we're going to go over an example, but this is just kind of show you an example of the interface of how we're going to be building these flows going forward. So hopefully, again, you're seeing, okay, I can kind of get an idea that there's these items out here and what they might be able to do for me. But let's kind of go through and walk through what we're initially delivering, or what we have delivered for you in SL 2018. So I can speak and talk about how great Power Apps and Flow are, but if you don't actually see a benefit and can't see how it would work well for you, then you're probably not going to go any further with that solution. So what I went to about a year ago, I went to the team and I said, I need to build a really nice solution that I can demonstrate and deliver to the SL customers so they can see the benefit. And once they see the benefit, then hopefully they'll start using it. And again, these are our starting points. I completely expect that you're going to take this solution that I'm going to show you right now and say, oh, that's great. I'm going to tweak it. I'm going to add a field here. I'm going to remove things that I don't want to have here. And it's just a really great starting point, but we're not giving you to start from scratch and saying, hey, have at it. This is a way for you to get delivered a solution that I think that really can work well for you. So I went back to the team and I said, let's do something that we can probably all agree in, accounts receivable. Most of us that are using SL can say, okay, yep, I use receivables. And we want to be able to see how much we're due from those customers. We want to be able to contact those customers. If I'm remote, you know what? I might know that we've already received payment and I can actually run an aging and run that process on SL, but I can invoke it remotely and then be able to get results of that information. So that's what we built. We built two versions of this particular tool. One is in a phone format and one is in a tablet format. So this is the example I'm going to go through today is the phone format. Now, why do I say it's a phone format? Because it's obvious, it's very narrow, it's not very wide, because we assume that you're going to be running this on your phone. So this is our AR customer balances. It is showing me a list of the customers. Right now I've got it in sorting and the person who owes me the most at top, and then going down as you can see. So you can see the outstanding balances. Now let's say I wanted to go ahead and search for a specific person. We've got the search customer field. So if I typed in ADV, it's going to find anywhere where ADV is sitting out there, and it's going to show me all those particular persons. So I have that ability to go ahead and get down to the person that I want to see. Then if I come back in here, let's say I want to find a little bit more about Baldwin. Just a couple of things I noted. I'm showing you your customer ID, the name, outstanding balances. I've kind of color coded it based on different items. So if you owe over a certain amount, it's going to be red. You can set it up. So if it's around a certain range, it could be yellow, or green is when you don't owe anything. But again, you have the capabilities to tweak that. But out of the box, we're going to show you the red if they happen to owe us some money. So if I go into the Baldwin Construction Corporation, again, it's a small format, so I have a little bit restrictions on what I'm going to display. But I'm going to show you your outstanding balances. I'm going to show you high-level information, customer IDs, contacts, phone numbers, addresses, and so forth. If I wanted to find out a little bit more about this outstanding balance, it's graphically showing me that there's 3 companies set up in this database, and it looks like most of it's sitting on CHS. But if I click on that outstanding balances, it'll take me to another screen where it's going to show me the actual breakdown, and it's quite true. There's most of the 408,000 of it are sitting on CHS, and $34 are sitting in CBS. So not a lot, and that kind of explains why the graph looks like it does. But again, a quick visual cue. How does it look? And then I can drill down to the details and see exactly what's sitting out there by a specific company. If If I go back, other things that we have in here as well is the phone and the email icon. So for example, if I wanted to find out a little bit more and I might want to email this person, I can just click on this icon here and it will automatically bring up my email. That would be on my phone, tablet, whatever. And it'll allow me to go ahead and send emails to a specific person that's out there. Again, usually pulling in that data. Now, another thing that you can do as well, if you had a phone and this was connected to your phone, it could interact with your phone as well. Now, another thing is you might say, you know what, this amount balance, 408, I could have sworn we just got, you know, 350 or $300,000 payment the other day. You know what, I'm going to run an aging. So what we have the ability to do is click on the AR aging process, click on that button, and it's going to bring me up to the standard screen where I choose the statement cycle, which you could do a drop down and choose a specific one. And then once I've chosen it, I can go ahead and click on the execute AR balance, and it's ready to go. Now, right now, what you see me working in is I'm working inside a Power App. It's an interface, it's a screen where we're able to interface with the SL data and take action on it. Now, what I've got it set up, and this is one of the great things about Power Apps and Flows, is that they're interconnected. So when I click on the execute button, I have it set up that once I click on the execute button that I want a flow to happen. So when I click on flow, I've got it set up that if someone goes ahead and runs the AR aging process, that I want it to go ahead and automatically email somebody or email a specific person, let them know that the process has run. And then from that process, then you can go ahead and move forward with taking a look at the results of that AR aging process. So if I click on execute, I'm going to jump over to showing you the result of that. And this is a flow that basically says, hey, I've seen that someone has run the AR aging process and you set it up, Jeff, that you wanted to receive it. So I can see that this is a generic email that was set up, and then there's an attachment. So if I click on the attachment, it's basically run the AR or aging quick query screen process, and it's taken that data from that query and put it into an Excel document for me to look through. Now, you are free to go in, obviously, and hide the things that you don't need. We just generically threw it all out there, but of course, you're free to go in through Flow and choose exactly what you want to be exported from there as well. So we also I left some buttons in here. You can set up actions in here. So maybe you want to set it up that once I receive this, I want the option to send it to my manager. And I can just set up in Flow that when I click on the send to manager button, this is who I want it to email to. So again, pretty straightforward, but this just wanted to show you that you have the ability to interact with the data or take action with that data and do something with it, whether it's sending it to someone else or doing something else. So we've also taken that same flow and we've turned that Power App and Flow and turned it also into a tablet version. Now, how can you tell tablet? Obviously, I've got a lot more real estate to work with. So I don't need to worry about, I can show more data on that initial screen than I could when it was on my phone. But again, complete flexibility, the same functionality. I can search, I can go ahead and drill into a specific customer. And again, you'll notice that things look a little bit different because we can take advantage of the fact that we've got a lot more real estate and we can show that same information, but in a much easier way because I'm on my tablet / my desktop. So that's kind of a quick walkthrough of what you can get today, and that is available today. So if you're in SL 2018 or you want to talk to Dan or anybody on your team about getting a copy of this, this is available for you today and to connect to your SL 2018. Now, just because we're friends here, I will tell you that that actually can work on your SL 2015 connection as well. So if you're thinking, Jeff, we're not 2018 yet. Of course, I want you up there because we're adding more features. But if you want to get started on SL 2015 today and use it, that is something you can do as well. So, and know that we are creating new Power Apps and flows that are going to be released here in the next release of SL 2018. The next version, just as an FYI, SL 2018 CU1, Cumulative Update 1, will be coming here in the fall timeframe. So look for some new Power Apps and flows coming with that as well. So hopefully I've gotten you excited about that. Again, you can talk to Dan and team here, whoever you work with here, and get more information about doing that and go ahead and start moving forward with that. So now that I've hopefully got you excited about that, let's talk about how do you get started with Power Apps and Flow. So we're going to go through the process of what do I need to do. So the first thing is you might say, Jeff, well, I see that you kind of knew what you needed to do and you built this nice little Power App, but how about me? What do I, as an end user, what do I need to do to start thinking about? And the thing I say to most people is that if you ever run a report inside of Dynamics SL, you probably already know where a lot of this data is. What do I mean by that? Well, if you are running a query or you're running a screen or a report, when you run a quick query or report or anything, you're used to going in and choosing specific fields. I want to know where, AR doc dot whatever, or AR tran or AP doc or AP tran tables. You've learned probably through your years of working in SL what those fields are and so forth. So you probably have a really good idea already. And there's a couple of different ways to kind of find out, okay, if I want to do something in payables or receivables, to really look out for them. So if you are looking screen-wise, you have the ability to use something called customization mode, which hopefully you guys have heard about. And the idea behind customization mode is that we can go in and open up any screen, and if I give an access rights to it, I can click on a field and find out what are those, if I'm looking at the vendor screen, well, what's behind the vendor screen? Well, it's the vendor table. Okay, makes sense. When it's payables, it's the AP doc and AP tran table. And so using the screen customization idea allows you to do that. Another way to find it is that you might be using a lot of quick queries, and there's a way to actually hover over quick queries to understand what's the underlying data that it's pulling in. So you can actually use hovering over the quick query status bar to understand what the query is behind it, or you can even go into the quick query maintenance screen to verify, what is the underlying SQL view behind it. So those are just a couple different ways, and I show kind of a couple of screenshots of how to do this. And the first thing is, if you don't have this access, you might want to talk to Dan and team here to understand exactly what you need to do to get access, or talk to the proper person at your company to understand how do you get access to be able to view this information. But what is customization mode? Well, if you click on the little drop-down arrow there, you will be able to see ability to turn on something called customize mode. And underneath there, you'll be able to see that when you click on a field, for example, the name, that it tells me that the name of the table is called vendor and the name of the field is called name. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. So that means that if I wanted to write a screen or report to access this data, I know that I would be connecting to a table called vendor, and then I could drag on other fields that are available to it. Now, if you're doing quick queries, I could not take a screenshot. I tried a million times, but if you hover over this section right here, and it will actually show you what the query is behind it. And there's two different ways to access data in SL. You have the actual physical tables, like the vendor table, customer table, and there's things called SQL views. And the idea behind the SQL view is to take data from multiple tables like the vendor table, the customer table, the AP doc, the AR tran, the AR doc tables, and put them into one view that makes it easier to view information. So a lot of times, the data that you might want to be accessing remotely and viewing remotely is something that you might just use a quick query to access. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Another way to do it is if you have access to the quick query viewer, which is under administration, you can actually go in and find out the names of those. Here's the quick query for accounts, the quick query for account hist. They're pretty straightforwardly named. They're going to start with the value QQ for let you know it's a quick query, and the name of the idea that's behind it. Here's your account list and so forth. So that's kind of the first thing to do, is think about what do I want to get access to and how do I find out? Again, personally, I think the best way to start is to look at quick queries, because you're probably using them already, and that's probably a lot of the data that you're going to be accessed remotely. So look there and find out what those are. But also, if not, you can work with Dan and team here to understand exactly where's the data that I want and where to grab it from. So as I said, the thing about Power Apps Flow and Power BI, these live in the cloud, and that's the great thing about it, is that I can access it anywhere, just like as you do, whether you're using Office 365 or whatever you're using. Getting things remotely is what we're used to. So one of the things that you are going to have to do, and this is a step that you can work with Dan and team on, or you can work with your own internal team with, is setting up something called a gateway. And basically what a gateway is a secure connection from the cloud to your Dynamics SL database. Obviously, it's secure. The input, that's the very most important thing, because we want to make sure that it's connected, it's able to connect, but also that it's a gateway that's coming from Microsoft, and it's going to be a secure gateway that's set up. And the idea behind there is we're telling Power Apps Flow and Power BI, here's how you connect to my SL database to be able to provide me the views of that data. So that's available, and that's the first thing you need to set up. And I'm not going to say that that's something that you as an end user can do. Definitely talk to Dan and team, or talk to your IT team about getting that set up. But once that is set up, then you're ready to go forward. So how do I get this gateway? This is, again, I don't expect you as an end user to do this, but this is what you'd want to talk to your to Dan and team, or talk to your IT team about setting up this gateway. I'll just leave it as here. Basically, we talked about what it is, but again, this is a site to go to get that gateway. Now, once that is set up, then we're ready to go with our Power Apps. And so how do I get to Power Apps? Well, you can see right here, here's the URL to get to it. Again, it's a cloud. There's a cloud tool version of it, and there's an application tool that you can use. I'm going to show you the cloud tool just because it means I can access that wherever I want to on any device and makes it easier to demo for me. But you can also download the Power Apps application as well to your local machine, and it'll allow you to access the data as well. Now, once I get it installed, whether I'm using the remote or so forth, or I'm using the application, the first thing is I need to start by creating what I call a blank application. Now, you'll see there are templates in there as well, but when I connect to SL, I find it easier to start with a blank app and then go from that point. So the first thing you're going to be asked is, when you create your app, are you creating an app for a phone or a tablet? And obviously, we showed you how that looks on the previous demonstration, but again, you just choose exactly what you happen to be building this application for. Now, in this case, we'll go ahead and create a larger screen, so we've got a tablet, and then it's gone ahead and it's created our blank screen for us, and now it's ready for us to start connecting it. So think of it right now, you've got a blank Excel or a blank document now. Now we need to connect it to your SL database. So if I click on View, and I click on Data Resources, it's going to bring up a list of the data resources that are available. Now, if I've already selected my gateway and set it up correctly, it will automatically, in this case, it created one called Default, which is just a connection to my SL data. And once it comes up, it's going to give me a list of all the tables that are out there and all of the quick query views that are out there inside of my database. So I can search on those things. I can, scroll through here, whatever I need to do. But let's say I decided, you know what, you did a nice example, Jeff, of showing me how I can get accounts receivable balances. Let's take a look at AP balances. Now, there happens to be a quick query out there called AP balances. So I'm halfway there as far as creating my Power App. I don't need to worry about connecting tables, which ones to connect, which ones to bring in. That's why, I say if you're using this to look up data, using a quick query or a SQL view is a big benefit to you, because it gets you kind of over the hump of getting things connected and getting there much quicker. So if I go ahead and click on the AP balances, it's gone ahead and put that into the screen. So now we are connected. Our Power App screen that we have is now connected to it. All right, that's great, Jeff. So what do I need to do next? Well, there's different ways, and we can throw things onto the screen, but one of the ways that I like to put data on the screen is using something called a gallery. So if I click on the gallery, it's going to show me, okay, how do you want this data? Is it, vertical? Is it horizontal type of data that you're going to want to be able to search through? What's the best for you? And so the nice thing about it is it comes up with a couple of generic ways. I'm going to choose this vertical one because I'm going to see a list of the vendors that we owe. So I click on the vertical. And what it tries to do is, based on your connection, it tries to think about, okay, what is he trying to do here? Now, to be honest with you, sometimes it gets it. Most of the times it's not going to understand exactly what the tables are behind it, especially with a quick query. Now, if I was using an actual customer table, it kind of goes, oh, I can understand what that is. But something that says QQ_AP balances, it might not get it right off this bat. So once I get in there, I'm going to go ahead and choose that I'm going to connect this to the QQ balances. And again, it tries, and it does a pretty good job of pulling in some key data. So I've got the name and the customer ID that goes along with it. So it automatically does that. Now, I'm going to go ahead and switch things around. And this is where we talk about the fact that it's going to allow me to pull up any of the fields that are out there. So if I type in the word this item and then the period, it's going to show me all of those fields. Now, it has this little crate thing that prefixes it, but you're going to see, we're going to see date, balance, name, all the fields that we're used to seeing inside there. So if we type in this item and this company ID, so it's going to bring the company ID, and now I have added this item called company ID to the screen. So now I have the name, I've got the the vendor name, the vendor ID, the company that it goes along with, and now I'm just going to go a couple steps here. I've also got the balance. So the idea behind it is that, again, we can drop in as many things as we want. If I click on the vendor name, this is what comes over, this vendor name. Over here, I've got the vendor ID. And as we talked about, we can bring over things like company IDs, balances, whatever we need to bring into this screen. So now I've got this real basic little list of these people. So as you can see, AdventureWorks, here's their balance for CBS, here's their balance for CCC, for CDI, and CHS. So I can quickly see that information right on the screen. You might say, hey, Jeff, that's great. Now I can quickly see my balances, and maybe I can do some sorting and selecting. I want to see the one with the most balance at top and whatever I need to do there. Now the next thing, it says, you know what, Jeff, in your example, once I saw this information, you showed me that I could drill down into the customer details. So how would I do something here inside of this screen to drill down to another screen? And so basically what we do is we come in and we'd go ahead and create a brand new screen. So I'd say, okay, yep, this is really nice. We had this. Let's create a new screen, and go into new screen. We'll create a blank screen. And it's going to say, okay, what do you want to display on this new screen that you've just created? Now, we talked about the fact that on the other screen, we're looking at a quick query. A quick query is basically taking multiple tables and putting together. Well, on the second screen, if it's like the other one that I built, I want to see the details around that vendor. So what we can do is, luckily in SL, our names are pretty straightforward. We're going to bring in the vendor table. So if I go ahead and search for the vendor table, click connect, now I've got this new thing out in this gallery that's allowing me to go ahead and choose the vendor. Now, think about this. I was on the other screen where it's just going to be a list of all the vendors that are in the system. Now, when I click on one of them, if you saw in my demonstration, it went to a specific vendor that I selected. And we have to do a little bit of coding, but a lot of this is around kind of the Excel idea. So basically, I'm going to say up here on this particular gallery that I'm created is that what I want to display in here is that based on the vendor, I want this from this vendor table. Here's the vendor table. Here's the vendor ID. I want it to be equal to the previous screen vendor. So here's the previous screen that we had up here. Here's that other gallery called vendors, and it's vendors selected that vendor ID. So what does this mean, Jeff? Okay, so what I want to do is when I click on a vendor here, I want to then go to this screen, and what I want you to display is whatever vendor I selected from this screen, which is this right here, vendors1.selected ID, pass that value to this screen, and then I want to display on this screen only vendors that have that ID. So pretty straightforward. It's just saying, hey, I want to filter this. The only thing that I see are the vendors that I selected. Okay, that's a little bit technical, but again, you'll have this to be able to pull this up and understand it once you go on forward. So now that I've got it there, then I can start dropping items here. This item, that vend ID, there it is. This item, that name. So now I've got their vendor ID, their name. I can continue to add additional things like address one, city, state, zip, and so forth. So now what we've got here is got this first screen, and then I just went ahead and renamed this screen. This is my vendor detail screen, and I can go ahead and do a little bit more just to make it make a little more sense. I can go into this vendor details section, and I can actually start naming the fields, because as you saw before, they generically comes over, here's label 9, label 8, label 7, just happen to be the order that I entered them in. But as you see, I come here, I can change them. So I know that this is the zip code field, the state, the city, the address, the name, and so forth. So I can actually go forward and make it make a lot more sense. So it allows me to add that detailed information. Now, the last thing I need to do is I need to make sure that we can navigate. So what I can do here is that when I am on that first screen, and I'm on the AdventureWorks and I'm looking at their balances for the vendor, I can take this little icon here, I can click on it and say, here's the action I want you to take. When you click on this icon, I want you to navigate, and I want you to navigate to the vendor's detail. There it is, the vendor detail screen, and then you can tell it how do you want to do it. Do you want it to wipe, fade, whatever you want to do. And so just by simply doing this, I have now connected this screen to the screen that I just connected, and now we're able to have this fully connected quick little vendor thing that I did in, probably will take you, 15 to 20 minutes to make that initial connection, and then you can build off of that, add the things that you want. So again, a little bit to probably hard to take initially, but again, you're going to get this full demonstration deck. You're going to get a copy of this and be able to walk forward with it. So the next thing, let's talk about flow. What can we do with flow? Again, we talked about one of the prerequisites is you do need that gateway. So again, you do that. But then here's where you need to go to get your flow. And again, this is where you can connect the download flow. And one of the things that I didn't talk about with Power Apps and Flow is that when you're doing this, you're downloading it, you're installing it, you're getting it, but you will be setting up an account. And this account initially will be free to you. If you start using it more than a certain amount, it does go to cost a small amount. Say you're using it for a large amount of flow information, there will be some small nominal monthly costs for that. Same with your Power Apps as well. If you decide to distribute it to more people, there will be some small amount. But the things that we're doing right now, this is free to you. This is free to you for you to download and start playing with and seeing how that works and start using it as well. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a flow that basically updates you every day at a certain time with your customer balances. So there's basically some steps here. We're going to set a recurrence. We're going to say how frequently do we want it to happen? When it happens, what are we doing? What are we grabbing out of the database? Then we grab that data. Where do we want to put it? Well, I want to put it in a file that I can actually send to someone. And then I want to take that file and I want to email it to someone. So this one's probably a little bit more straightforward initial looking at it, but again, they're both, once you get into them, they're pretty straightforward. So basically what we'll be doing is we'll be walking through the process of how I created this particular one right here. The first is recurrence. How often do we want to do it? So right now you see I have it set up that once a day I want it to do this particular item. But you can see it can be once a day, once a month, once a week, once an hour, once a second. I don't know what you do there, but potentially there's something to do there. So I can set up those. I can set up a certain time, start time, end time, at these times, at these hours. I can get really, really, really detailed. Or you might just say, yep, once a day is fine, and you can even set a time that I want to, at 8 o'clock in the morning, I want to receive this information. The next thing, as I added, the next thing was this whole get rows. Well, just like we talked about an accounts payable, we wanted to go ahead and add that same quick query that we talked about. I can go to this get rows and I can choose any of those items that are out there, any of the tables that are out there, any of the quick queries. So whichever one makes sense to you for what you're doing. So I can choose that AP balances. And then if I open it up, you're going to see there's a lot of different filters. So I can filter it. I can do a select statement, select where, this is a little bit of SQL, select where certain values equal something. So there's some basic stuff you can do, but also you can just have it generically grab the data and put it all out there. Then the next step is that once I get that data, I've got a return result from that, getting that data from SQL. What do I want to do it? Well, I want to take that value and I want to put it into a CSV file. So there's already a built-in step to take that data and put it into a CSV. So I take that value, I can tell it whether I want to include headers and columns and so forth. And I'll have it automatically take that data and put it in there. And then the next thing I can do is say, you know what, I want to take that data and I want to put it and I want to email it to me. So I've set it up and chosen the next step is that I want to add an email step. And so I've gone ahead and pre-put in there that I want to send it to me. I can put as many email addresses as I like. Here's my subject, here's the body. And then I can go and set up some different things. I could CC it to somebody or BCC. And then all I need to do is take that CSV file and tell it that I want to put the CSV file, which is the output from that previous one. You see the CSV file, it's purple, it created an output. And I want to attach it to this particular email. Now I need to give it a name. One of the most important things that I learned when doing this is that you need to give it a name and then put the .csv at the end of it. That tells it that when you receive the file that it is a CSV file, which then in your case most of the time, and most of us use Excel, it'll allow us to open up Excel to be able to look at that data. So just an important thing, don't just give it a generic name, give it that .csv at the end. That's going to save you a lot of time when you receive that file. And now that's what we basically built. Now think about that. This is real simple. I've just gone to take some data that's in a quick query. I've automated it that every day it's going to send me that data. Again, I can do a lot more and get the more details. I can get to more about formatting the data that I'm getting. I can change my frequency, lots of stuff. But once you set that up once, then you can have it set up to run for you and automatically run. Now in this particular case, I can click on the Run Now, and it will go ahead and send it to me. Again, similar to what we had in accounts receivable, you can see it gone ahead and created that document and attached it and gave it to me here. So think about all those different areas that your things that you would love to get automated notification. And again, it didn't require that I had to log into SL. It's something that's going to be secure with my gateway, but I can tell it what I want to have and what I want to receive. So it's a real nice advantage to be able to get that information. So hopefully that kind of shows you, just kind of get you excited about some of the things that you can do with Power Apps and Flow. Again, just some key takeaways from here. One, if you're on SL 2018, obviously we're continuing to develop and put out new Power Apps and Flows as we release continue to update SL 2018 that just came out. Today, what you can get is that accounts receivable, being able to see the balances, being able to do that whether it's the tablet or the phone format. Not sure how to get it? Then definitely talk to Dan and team to understand exactly how they can help you get that downloaded and help you assist you with getting it installed. Again, there is going to be a part that you're going to want to talk to your IT people or Dan and team about getting set up with that gateway. But once that's done, it's pretty straightforward as how to get connected with Power Apps and Flow. Again, we continue to work on it. Again, I'm focusing on SL 2018, but please note, I'm not going to jump and promote it, but technically a lot of the things that I just did here can also work with SL 2015 as well. So if you're still on 2015, you think, I don't need to worry about Power Apps and Flows until I upgrade, don't worry, you can actually start working with it today. And that's really what this is at. And so we're going to continue to build Power Apps and Flows and continue to deliver them to them. I see them really as your starting point. This is whether it's I give you a quick query or I give you a report. I don't assume that it's going to work for everybody the way it does out of the box. I definitely see you working with Dan and team to understand exactly what it is, what can it do, and start thinking about what are those things that you've always asked for but thought they just could never be done inside of SL. That's the benefit that I see here. Power Apps and Flow allow us to take it outside of the SL world, and they'll provide you with the opportunity to do things that in the past we would think, that's going to cost too much money. That's something that we really want to tackle. And it brings the power back to us as the end user to be able to start thinking about these things and start building out things that I think are really going to be of great benefit to you. So with that, I'm doing pretty good here. I wanted to leave some extra time in case you happen to have any questions on what you saw today. And with that, I'll bring Dan back on, and we can go ahead and monitor Dan and see if we see any questions that came across. Or Dan, if you happen to have any questions on what you kind of saw today. Dan?
Hey there. Jeff, thanks and great job on presenting all this content. So yeah, it looks like we do have a few questions. The first one is from Warren. Are there any Power Apps or flows delivered with SL 2018 today?
Yep, so probably that came on earlier, but yep. The ones that come today out of the box was the one when I was walking through and doing the example with the accounts receivable. So that is available today for 2018. The ones that we're working on for CU1, which I said is coming in the fall, there's going to be some notifications, kind of like the ones that we showed, knowing customer balances, vendor balances, and we have a couple other ones that we're working on to work with some of the approval process that we added in SL 2018 as well. So great question. Hopefully you heard it earlier, but just in case you didn't, it is available today.
Okay. And the next one is from Jennifer. We are not in the cloud. Will we be able to use Power Apps and Flow?
Very good question. Exactly. Great question. And that's the thing that's the benefit of this. So one of the things is about this is this whole gateway idea allows Power Apps, Flow, and Power BI to live in the cloud. And it allows us to connect to our data that's on-premise in our Dynamics SL database. So even if SL is not in the cloud and SL is still sitting on a server at your location, that gateway is that connection. That's the secure connection that allows Power Apps and Flow to connect to your Dynamics SL database. So yes, you definitely can using that gateway. And working with Dan and team, you can learn more about from SIS what it takes to move forward with this. And yes, most definitely you can start taking advantage of that today. So great question.
Hey, Jeff, I want to just add to that question because since Dynamics SL is a client-server environment,
yes,
many IT organizations will put their server behind the firewall to where it may not even have access to things like gateways, like especially the SQL Server. I've run into many customers to where once you're in that SQL Server, you open up, Internet Explorer or whatever, and you can't get to the internet. They've got it really, way behind that firewall so that it can't get hacked into. So the question I'd like to add to Jennifer's is, to access that gateway, is it something that happens from your client machine, or is it something that happens from the server? Just out of curiosity. And you could, obviously the gateway requires internet access. So what kind of firewall types of things do we need to be aware of?
I can get you listed, and I don't know those off the top of my head, exactly the setup there, but it is going to be something that you're usually going to set up on your, like you said, on your server, and then you'll be able to access it remotely through these items that we have here. But yet I don't have that top of my head, but I can definitely get some stuff together, or at least send you some sites that'll help you with that.
Yeah, let me just rephrase the question. Maybe I got too complicated. If your workstation that you're running Dynamics SL has internet access, will the gateway work?
Oh yes, most definitely. Yes.
Okay, so it sounds like it's more client-based.
The client part connection's there, but the secure gateway connection does need to be set up securely by your IT. Now the idea too is that these Power Apps that will live up there, that gateway that you're going to have is usually going to be on a server, because that means that when I'm out on my phone, I'm out and about, and I'm doing things, I can still run a Power App on my phone or a flow on my phone and be able to access the data that's in the gateway. So that gateway is something that's going to be secure, that can be accessed not just from your local machine, but when I'm out and about on my phone or my tablet away from my desk.
Got it. Okay. The next question is from David. You mentioned some functions that could be launched, such as AR aging. Can a process such as generate recurring entries or generate recurring vouchers be applied to these functions for automation?
Good question. Yeah, AR aging just happened to work perfectly because, not to get too technical, but AR aging is a procedure that's run inside of SL. Basically, certain items are procedures that can be run. Certain ones require that an actual screen be brought up and you hit a button to press it. So there are certain items like AR aging that are just a straight procedure that we can call remotely. There are certain things like recurring invoices that I'm not sure that you would be able to do that. But I would double check with Dan, because I don't know all of the ones that use procs off the top of my head. But talking to Dan and SIS, talking about those areas, that we might be able to identify which ones you actually can do remotely. So that's a really good question. Dan, I will leave that to you.
And so that's the rest of the questions. In terms of Power Apps and Flow, can you go into a little bit of detail as to what's coming on SL 2018 and CU1 with regards to the approvals and things like that? What we're going to be seeing coming down the road. New things that are coming in CU1 that are going to make Power Apps and Flow even better.
Yeah. So if you guys have, just to talk a little bit about SL 2018, one of the things that we added in SL 2018 was this idea of being able to do approvals. And it's the first screen we've done it in, and so we're getting a lot of great feedback on little tweaks and so forth for this CU1 release that we were getting ready to come out with. But also, right now, currently, to approve items in SL 2018, you actually have, in this case, have to open up that screen to do the approvals. What we're working on now is adding Power Apps that would allow you to remotely go ahead and connect, view the information, and choose to approve or reject a batch or a document. So we're working on some of those high-level items for Power Apps. I'll generically, don't hold me to this, it's either going to be CU1 or CU2 that gets into. As far as flows, I know I've got a presentation later today from the team. We've got a series of at least 5 additional flows that we're going to put out there. Everything from similar things that we saw today, customer balance, vendor balance, project balances, a lot of the basics that you would expect that I think are going to be great stepping points for you as a customer, but also for Dana as an SIS to say, yes, look at the things that you can do. You guys can look at them and say, oh, that's great. Let's tweak it. Let's take it to the next step. Let's take it to the next level. So those are the items that are going to be coming out in the C1 are the flows and then the Power Apps that we're working on around approvals. But then we'll continue to work on them going forward. It's not a one and done. And the nice thing about Power Apps and Flow is that they are actually constantly being updated. So they're adding new feature functionality to it. When we started building these about a year and a half ago, some of the functionality that we can do now very easily was not there because they're constantly investing in this. And so they feel Power BI, Power Apps, Flow are big investment areas for Microsoft. It's in the cloud. Obviously, cloud is huge. And then this means that we, as the Dynamics SL community, can take advantage of the continued investment they have that they're putting into these three products, and we can continue to build on top of them and add new feature functionality. So definitely, as a customer, think, what are the things that we constantly do all the time that would be great to do remote? What's the stuff that I'd like to be able to access wherever I'm at? And it could even, and I'm not saying you have to do this, you can even potentially do data entry through Power Apps. Not that I'm promoting that. I know some people get really scared when I say data entry, but again, if there's a situation where, hey, someone in the warehouse or someone in the area, we'd love them to be able to remotely access and put data into the system, and it's something that you can do. That's actually where Power Apps and Flow can actually help you out. So it's a completely different mindset because this is completely different because I've done development before, but the fact that you can now open this up to everyone and everyone can start taking action on it, I really see this as a new area for the Dynamics SL world to start building on and continue to benefit the Dynamics SL customer base.
That's really cool. Thanks for all that information. It sounds very exciting, especially the effort that's going into the approvals. I think that's going to be a home run.
Yep.
So one other question relating to both of these technologies and licensing, like the light user license and things like that. What's the from the Microsoft mouth how that needs to be licensed?
Sure. So anytime that you're remotely accessing Dynamics SL data, we do generally require that light user license. That enables you to do anything from using our internal tools, the web apps, to accessing it through Excel and so forth. That's for the users, that allows them to do that. Now the cost based on the different things that you're using in Power BI and Power Apps and Flow, there can be some costs based on your usage. So it's a little bit different. For example, in Power BI, I think, and I know we're not talking about it, but that's the one that I know. I think if you start using it out a certain area, it's like $9 a month to use it. With the stuff that we're doing right now for Flow and Power Apps, if you're not using it, for example, if you're only using a certain number of flows, it does start to, based on the number of flows that you create and that are getting notifications on a daily basis, there is some costs that are involved. I don't know the breakout level, so I don't want to misinform you, but there could be some potential pricing around that, and with the Power Apps as well. So it does based on your need. The stuff that we did today and the stuff that I'm kind of encouraging people today right now is there is no cost to do those things today, and that's the huge benefit. And then as you guys see benefit to it and can build beyond that, then there potentially will be some costs. But off the top of my head, Dan, I don't have those costs right, because they are changing and adjusting as they continue to build out more items.
Okay, sounds great. Well, I think we've hit the 1 hour mark. I'd like to thank everybody for attending the call and learning something today. It's always good to learn. Jeff, I appreciate all the time and effort you put into your presentation. It was great, and thanks for getting all the questions answered.
My pleasure. And if you guys have any questions, obviously you guys are with a great partner, SIS. Speak to Dan and his team about getting more involved with Power Apps and Flow. And thank you guys so much for your time. We look forward to talking to you soon.
Yeah, so I think there might be 1 or 2 slides just to give you some contact information for SIS. Let's just jump into that real quick. There we go. If you have any more questions, you can contact Debbie Peavy, and her number is 888-844-6599 or dpv@sisn.com. Thank you very much, everybody, for attending, and have a great rest of your day.